Welcome to the Mach 10 podcast. You bunch of wankers.
All right, Mach 10 podcast. Wow, this is it, man. This is episode number 1. This is numero uno, my origin story, whatever you want to call it. It's the beginning of something very cool. And everyone listening, I promise you that we are not going to disappoint. We've got something for everyone. With all that in mind, let's get into episode number 1. Now, I'm excited and feel super privileged to have this person as my first guest, honestly. He's got such a decorated list of achievements, so I want to make sure I get this right. He is a singer, songwriter, JUNO Award-winning producer, recording studio engineer, manager. He owns a record label, Flat Car Records, and he is also a teacher. Why not? What did I miss?
That sounds like that's good.
That sounds good.
There.
All right. So we got Chris Graham of Bell Fountain. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Thank
great
you.
To be here.
We're here celebrating the new album. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But you were just here at the time of filming July 1st, performing in Lethbridge, Alberta at Henderson Lake. How was that?
It was great. It's the first time here. And it was raining all the way down, but we saw the sky clearing up a bit. And then eventually the sun came in right for our set. So that was great.
I was worried.
Yeah.
I was worried this morning. It was coming down hard and I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but yeah, it cleared up, I don't know, around 2:00.
Well, it's pretty amazing actually too, because we cut through Red Deer a bit on the way here, and they had a festival there too, and it was raining and everyone was out at the festival regardless. And I was like, wow, like these people are serious. Back in Toronto, they'd be like, no. Little rain, we're not going to go.
This is Alberta. A little rain is not going to stop us.
Yeah, so that's cool. So we knew that, when we got there, people would still be there. So
I was at the show. It was awesome. It was fantastic. So it was great to see you guys.
Thanks.
We have a little bit of a history. We go back.
Long time.
We go back a long time. I'm going to say 20 years.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. Crazy.
And
I started young when we met, so I was like 23.
Were you 23? Oh, okay. I was trying to figure that out because you were my music teacher in high school.
Yeah. And I was only there for a bit, so yeah, we just happened to connect that year, and you were already like pro guitar player at that point.
I don't know about pro, but I was working towards it, so I appreciate that. Do you actually remember recording me for the Rock for Bolivia fundraising album?
I do.
So I tried to find that CD. I have it somewhere.
Okay.
I have it somewhere. The recording came out good.
Yeah.
Like I remember listening to it like a couple of years ago when I found it. My music writing skills back then were, in my opinion, not up to par. And wherever that CD is now.
Is that it there?
Oh my God.
That has something on there.
That is absolutely it. Oh man. I cannot believe that you have a physical copy of that. I have not seen that for so long.
Funny enough, I was cleaning up my office this past week, and I found all these recordings I'd been saving forever, literally for 20 years.
That is hilarious.
Crazy, eh?
I was looking for this, and I could not find it. Oh, you brought this for me?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Doesn't compare to your CD.
Well, if you listen to my, it's all a learning process. So like, I through my whole career, like even when I was 18, 20 or whatever, I was like, okay, this is great. This is as good as it needs to be. And then you look back and you're like, oh, actually, like I'm still learning stuff all the time as I go.
Well, why don't we start at the beginning? If you have a look at the screen here, we'll toss this album up here.
Oh, wow. Okay, we're going back. Ironic Twist.
Do you remember that album?
Yeah, I do.
And then I was looking at this when I was doing my research. Brad Nelson, didn't Brad work at Metalworks?
He did, yeah.
I remember Brad. I went to Fanshawe College. I can't remember if it was Brad, but I remember
he taught there. Yeah.
Okay, so then I do remember Brad, and then I remember going to Metalworks and talking to those guys there, and so that's pretty wild when I saw his name.
Yeah, it's funny. At the time I met him, we were doing that. He was producing, if you remember Spooky Reuben, who's from the 90s, or at least that's where he made a name for himself early on Much Music in the 90s. He was signed to TBT Records.
Oh, okay.
And Brad was recording his album at the same time, or his second album at the same time he was working with us. And so we were like huge fans of this guy, and we got to record in his apartment because that's where they were also recording his stuff. So we were like, wow, we're in his apartment. It's so cool. All his gear and everything's like going to this famous musician.
Wild. Oh, yeah.
And the crazy thing is, like, all these years later, I ended up playing in his Spooky's band, which is like cool for me as like someone that I looked up to when I was younger, and like I get to actually play in his band. And actually, right now, I'm in the middle of producing his latest record too.
That's wild.
So it's crazy.
Yeah.
I look back at that, I'm like, oh yeah. So I didn't actually meet him in person at that point.
Yeah,
We just happened to be in his empty apartment when he wasn't there.
That's pretty wild. You have no idea where life is going to take you.
Yeah, seriously.
You know, you have a little bit of a plan, or I think you start off with a pretty solid plan. I did, and then you realize it never goes that way, right? There's so many other avenues and so many other things that come up that make your solid plan that you have not be so solid.
And I'm not sure if he would want this photo out there on the net, but the guy in the yellow shirt there behind, that's Mark. He actually is the guitarist in the band Magic. That's that song Rude.
Are you serious? Yeah. All right, maybe we won't show the picture, but but there's proof right there that everyone starts somewhere, and everyone has that first recording or first album, and if you stick with it and you're determined enough, you can actually make it in the industry. And I guess it also helps if you write a hit song that explodes, internationally and charts at #1 for weeks. That probably helps a little.
Yeah.
So we are showing a lot of pictures and videos in the studio today, and we'll make sure that we get those up onto our Mach 10 podcast YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, all our social medias, and this way you guys can see exactly what we're talking about. And you can see this picture here. So we got slick back hair, leather jacket, I'm guessing early solo days.
Yeah, so I went through my solo acoustic phase playing like that. I don't know if you remember that. It was like early 2000s. It was like the thing, like there was like Jason Mraz and Sheryl Crow. There was just like a whole movement of like people just playing like solo acoustic stuff. And so I was in there too doing that. And a friend of mine, we met and we sort of were doing shows together, just playing like pubs.
So who were some of your earliest influences then? Or even just to get involved in music just in general? Like how'd you get involved with it?
How far back? You mean, like I always was, when I was young, really writing and recording. Like I always had the latest technology. Like if it was just putting up like a Casio keyboard, connecting it to a computer and going through like the headphone jack or something and slowly upgrading my stuff. But, there was always like the more expensive gear you wish you had. Like I remember there was like those ADAT machines, but then at a certain point you just once everyone's recording on a computer and that's all you need is just like an interface in your computer. Yeah. It's sort of like the playing field's even now. So it used to be like you had to go to the studio. So that one with Brad, it was kind of like at that point you had to go to a studio if you really wanted a proper rock band recording. Right?
Absolutely.
Like I even tracked at Metalworks myself when I was in like grade 10. I was I was always ambitious about things like that. I was just like, okay, well, we need a recording. Well, let's go to Metalworks and let's pay for a few hours. And even though I had no idea what I was doing, just like,
Yeah, but you obviously figured that part out. I actually remember the first time going to Metalworks, and it is such a cool place. And for those who don't know, it's a big time recording studio in Mississauga, where I'm from. And Gil Moore, the drummer of Triumph, started it back in the late 70s. And so many amazing artists recorded there. Like we're talking big time artists like David Bowie, Guns N' Roses, Limp Bizkit, Tom Cochrane, Prince. The list just goes on and on. I remember being there one time when Bob Rock was working on one of the Our Lady Peace albums, and everyone was trying to see how he was miking up the drums to get that huge Bob Rock Metallica Black Album drum sound. But nope, I wasn't allowed. I was not one of the privileged. But at that time, they had the Metalworks recording school set up. Yeah. And I remember thinking that because everyone is doing all this stuff at home, they're not going to be using the professional studios as much, right?
But it's funny because it comes full circle, because I do a lot of projects, like I help artists get grants and so on to fund their recordings, because obviously it's really helpful to cover the costs of musicians and marketing and everything. And so we tend to actually go to an actual studio quite often, like almost every project, because you know, it's nice having all the gear just ready to go, to be honest. I've done like guerrilla style ones, like some of my other albums where we're trying to save money and so on. We would just like rent the gear and set it all up in like an empty space. Like one time we did an album where we were like above a mechanic shop, so you had to do it in the evenings, there's no sounds, and we just brought in all the gear rented and just recorded everything there.
That's pretty crazy, actually, because I think a lot of people take for granted what goes on behind the scenes, whether it's pre-production, post-production, or, you know, anything in between. Like the effort and time to rent the equipment and set it up for different environments, especially above a repair garage, and work it until you get that professional sound. It's a pain in the butt, and the odds are just stacked against you. I'm not saying it's impossible, because it's clearly not, and I'm sure there are thousands and thousands of albums recorded like that. But from a logistics standpoint, it just makes sense to record somewhere that is literally set up and ready to go for that purpose.
Yeah.
Moving ahead a little bit, so then you start to gain a little bit of traction, like with your solo career, I guess. And then did you decide, like, hey, listen, I wanna get into a band, I wanna record an album? Was that kind of the next step?
Yeah, well, for following this track here, it's sort of like, I was doing that solo stuff quite a lot. I did there was like a TV Ontario song contest, so you can check it out. It's on YouTube, which was kind of cool because one of the judges there was from Billboard magazine.
Yeah.
And he was like, Chris's lyrics are great. And I was like, the guy from Billboard, he said my lyrics are great. Yeah. But I made a mistake though. I'll never forget this. I think I could say this. That like I quoted the video in my bio and I was like, Larry said my lyrics are great, right? Yeah. But he didn't like that because
why not?
I put like the wrong punctuation that made it sound like it was actually in Billboard magazine. I just thought he works at Billboard, and he says
I would have done the same thing.
Absolutely. So he was like, you have to say like of Billboard, and I'm like, okay, great, I'll do that then.
Yeah.
And then funny enough, my latest record, I just had the release party in Toronto last week, and there's a great guy, Lenny Stout, who writes for Billboard, and he like loved the show, loves the album, and he wrote all this great stuff about it. It's kind of funny, like all these years later. But I made sure when I quote him on that, I'll put like of Billboard, because he just put it out there on social media to everyone. Like, here's my he reviews live shows. And then he also writes like for like billboard.com and stuff like that.
I read that article, and it was fantastic.
Yeah,
like
cool.
He had nothing but good things to say about you and to say about the album.
Yeah, and also he's like clearly listened to the songs really closely, so it's it's really cool to hear someone that actually you respect their opinion, that they have like detailed notes for you about your songs and stuff.
Exactly. That's why when I read his review, you can absolutely tell that he listened to the songs, he read the lyrics, and was able to kind of piece it all together. Mm-hmm. That's really cool. That's got to be, that's got to feel good.
Yeah.
Right? That's got to feel good.
And you're like, okay, can you tell everyone?
It's like, come on, Larry of Billboard, let's get the word out. We'll edit this video in of the Chris Graham band the song is Call.
Okay, it's time to hear from a band, specifically the Chris Graham band from Toronto. Larry, what was it about their sound that you liked?
I think the thing about Chris is he was what we were looking for in the contest. A great voice and a wonderful songwriter. His lyrics are incredible.
But no one hears a sound as they silently kiss the ground. You're crashed up in a ditch. They don't see the lights and how you still shine so bright. In a lonely room, there is cellophane. You won't sleep again. Now they know your name. You can hardly move. So I wanna say
sitting in my living room and watching this with my parents, and I was
weird.
like, hey, that's my music teacher. And what's funny too is that when you start scrolling through the comments, people are saying the same thing. I remember thinking to myself, this guy's made it.
Yeah.
Like, this guy has made it.
I don't know, it seemed like it at the time. We're like, oh, we're top 10 independent. I got a funny story about this video though. If you watch there, the band, there's Mark again. He's got a lot more hair in that video there. But you can see her in that shot. We were young and impressionable, you know. So they told us, whatever you do, don't move around the stage because our cameras are set. So what do? We literally stand like statues. You can see all of us. We bend our knees because we follow the instructions.
Sweet dance moves there.
Yeah, and then we were like, wait a second. Now to act after us, they're walking all over. We're like, man.
You just do what you're told, right? It's like, hey, I got this opportunity to perform on live TV.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want me to move? Okay, I'm not going to move at all.
We lost the official contest. We lost there, but we won the audience poll.
It's actually one of my favorite songs that you do, and I think maybe because of when it came out, and it kind of takes me back and the nostalgic feeling. Awesome.
I kind of wrote that song for my younger brother. He's not actually there, but he actually is playing drums with me now in my band. You should get him on your podcast. He sang with the guys from Guns N' Roses and everything. This is a whole other Oh my God! Yeah, Ricky's right there. That's a funny shot. Yeah, so he's playing drums with me now, but I wrote that song about him. It's sort of like, you know, you hang out together when you're growing up, and then both my brothers moved to LA.
Oh yeah.
So Rick moved to LA, and he starts hanging with the guys from GNR, and then my other brother became an actor and director. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So with Rick, he was actually performing with what's his name from GNR, Adler?
Adler, he played with Adler's Appetite. They toured all over the world with them. And then before that, he actually played with the drummer from The Offspring after The Offspring split up.
Oh, he's got some connections then.
He just finds drummers from bands that have broken up and plays with them.
I guess you got to do whatever works, right?
Yeah.
The Offspring were actually the band that influenced me the most growing up. I remember the first album I got, my mom bought me the cassette, was Elvis Presley's Greatest Hits, and it's timeless music, don't get me wrong,
right.
But when I think back, maybe not what a 10-year-old wants to listen to in the early 90s during like the pinnacle of the grunge movement. And then my sister, for my birthday, got me Lenny Kravitz, Are You Gonna Go My Way? And I remember thinking, okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting somewhere. But in 94, and I probably didn't pick up the CD until like 95 or 96, but The Offspring released Smash, and I'm pretty sure every single person on the planet owned that album.
Gotta keep them separated.
Absolutely. But that was the moment. I can literally circle a date on a calendar from 30 years ago and say this was the date, and that's the album that did it.
That's cool. Well, you were asking me about influences. I was going to say, like, it's kind of weird. You look back, I grew up on like synth pop, a lot of it. Like my favorite bands were like Depeche Mode, Pet Shop Boys. I was into like, you know, a lot of British synth pop, but that's sort of like I got the foundation there. And then I moved into the grunge era, and I was all in on like, you know, Nirvana, Pearl Jam.
Oh, for sure.
Our Lady Peace. I liked a lot of the Canadian bands we had here doing that stuff. Like I Mother Earth was awesome. And you know, then the Brit pop invasion. I was a big Oasis fan, and Radiohead, you know, with the Bends and so on. And then it's funny. I kind of feel like a music historian a bit too. Like I look back on all these things, and I feel like there was that weird time between like 97 and 03, you know, between like Oasis and the Strokes, where like not very good music happening in that little window.
Yeah, I can agree with you.
It's hard to find some good stuff in there.
You mentioned like the synth pop stuff.
Yeah.
So then after the Chris Graham band, you moved into, was it Fire by Fire next?
No, it was the Framework next. But I should mention,
Framework.
like, I left out U2 and basically a couple bands. Like, so U2 gets slagged, I think, for good reason these days, because, like, you know, I probably haven't liked any of their stuff since like 15 years ago. But, you know, I grew up on like Joshua Tree. Octung Baby's probably my favorite album album of all time.
Okay,
I just love
That's
that
fantastic.
album for so many reasons, like great lyrics, great songs, awesome production, the story behind the album of like, you know, they recorded it while the Berlin Wall was coming down. It's just all this cool stuff around that album, right?
Amazing.
So, but I always tried to emulate that. I always thought like, oh, that's how you're supposed to do it. Like write great songs, great lyrics, and as a vocalist, like really try and go for it. Like his range is huge, right? So like try and sing as high as you can, and you know, be the best you can be at all this. So someone said that to me recently. They heard me singing, and they heard the album, and they're like, "Oh, that's cool, man. You're really going for it on those songs, on the vocals." I'm like, "Going for it? Like, oh, they mean like because I'm singing higher, or I'm belting it? Like, I thought that's what we were supposed to do as a singer, you know? I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, yeah, I think there's like a certain trends nowadays. It's more like whisper vocals and like not really be so like wear your heart on your sleeve. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know?
exactly.
But I grew up on that, so I just what I do. I don't think I could do anything else.
I think it's so important to experiment with your voice. Like, there's so much music out there, so many bands, so many artists that you need to, you know, stand out. And you stand out by doing things with your vocals, by singing higher, singing lower. You know, a lot of people are singing with accents now, and that, I don't know, that kind of...
Well, the problem is...
kind of drives me nuts, to be honest.
I mean, the big record labels can do it because they got the machine going like on like hybrid overdrive, so like they can catch those trends right away.
Yeah.
Like, oh, someone else is doing this? Look, great, let's do it right now. Let's get someone else doing that too, right?
Right.
Whereas in an indie artist, it takes you a while to get out there and to the public, so... If you're just chasing those trends, like by the time you catch up to it, they've moved on to something else.
Exactly.
So,
that's why with the indie artists, you can do what you want. You can create the music that you want to create. And I think there's a lot of people who are missing out on tons of artists because they're just listening to what's on the radio. And, you know, 90%, you know, you need radio play, right? I'm all for it. But I think a lot of the songs they overplay, and then you get sick of it. But then you listen to the album and you're like, oh my God, there's, you know, 9 or 10 other songs on this that are way better than the one I heard on the radio, right? Yeah. So with independent bands, it's more authentic. The lyrics are authentic, the music is authentic because you know it's coming from someone who's writing real music and not just trying to appease to the masses.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's my opinion. So let's jump ahead a little bit with the framework. Is that Ryan?
So that's Ryan, yes. So Ryan Isajima. So we were doing solo acoustic stuff together.
Yeah.
And that kind of kickstarted things. And that's funny because like we were both doing our solo acoustic thing, and I think the Strokes were getting big at that time, and some other bands like the Sounds and stuff from Sweden. And then Ryan really wanted to start a rock band. Yeah. And I had already done, like I did Ironic Twist, and I'd already done rock bands. Yeah. But his pitch was, I want to start a rock band. I'll be the singer. You can sing sometimes too. But I want you to be the guitarist.
That's awesome.
And I didn't even play guitar. I played chords on an acoustic. That's all I did. And he was like, no, you can be the guitarist. I'm like, okay, I like that challenge. I like new challenges. So I'm like,
yeah, let's do it.
Guess what? I'm now a lead guitarist in a rock band. And then I sort of had to like figure out how to do that. So just pretty authentic. Like, so we wrote some songs together.
So then this photo.
That there is from Mix 99.9 FM in Toronto. They had a song contest, and I think we made it come in third on the contest. I'm not sure. Or did we win it? I can't remember.
I think you guys won it.
Did we win it? Okay.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool because that was like the first song. We got together in my basement, and we just like, he had an idea for a song, and then he had half of his ideas and I had my half of my ideas, and we put it all together. And it was a good marriage, I guess you could say, musically, like what we brought to the table. And so we just started, working on more and more songs, and we put out an EP. And I even think, I think on that EP, it was pretty rough. We did it in my basement, and we didn't have like an official band even or anything, but we made that, and that contest sort of kickstarted things. And then we actually were like, oh crap, like I think we need an actual band, like a drummer and everything, because right now it's just me and him. Like, how are we gonna play these songs? So his girlfriend Ryan, like she was there, joined to play keys, and then we got a bass and drummer that joined us. And the funny thing is, it sounds kind of lame now actually, but we actually had a photo shoot for the band because things were moving so fast. Before we even played a gig together, we did a photo shoot. And it's kind of like, the image came before the music or whatever. Man,
that's been my whole thing with this podcast. That was my whole thing. The dream was there, the image was there. And when did we do that photo shoot? Like a year and a half ago, I did a photo shoot, and because I was all ready to do this, I was so excited, and then it just took so long for things to
Yeah.
become real.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know all about that.
But you know what? Everyone comes around eventually. Like I would say now, I think most artists are pretty aware that like it does matter like what you're presenting. Like, you know, you obviously be yourself, but like although, you know, it kind of goes back and forth because now some people are like, well, I'm going to just post myself in my like jogging pants, like getting out of bed or something. And it's like, that's being like real and authentic.
Yeah,
but
no
at
shit.
that time, it was like, we're being a little fake by like caring about what we looked like because we like hired a professional photographer. But now, of course, like you're applying for grants or like any people at like a pro level, like yes, your friend can like take some photos, I'm sure, but like you might have to sort through like 1,000 of them before you get that one that's as good as the one.
It's not always the photographer though. How many pictures did we take? Yeah. And then I'm looking at, like, we're going through, I'm looking at my face. I'm like, oh my God, I thought that was a cool look. And we're like, no, delete.
Well, the photo shoot I did for the new album, like Jessica Devich, like I never met her before, but I liked her work. I saw it online. And so I was like, okay, if we can do it. And we did an outdoor shoot. And it's like, if you were like to do a percentage of like how many shots, like out of 30 shots, maybe we'll say she took, and it's like 25 were usable or something. Like it was like, everything was great. I'm like, wow.
So then what came next? After?
So then things really picked up from there. And so we took that EP, we had our full band, 5-piece band. And so I produced and recorded, mixed everything, a proper album with that band. Still, we recorded
Was that the Framework?
The Framework album. And that's the one that got signed to Last Gang Records. So we had already recorded the album, and so they just put their logo on it, stamp of approval, like you're signed.
Oh, yeah.
But it was already done in advance.
You guys
like,
did all the work,
we
all the hard
presented
work.
it, and you know, it was fine. And things were rolling then. So we had like, we did a video for a song by this guy that's Alon Ionescu's, like one of the top directors, you know, in Canada or the world. But we just happened to meet him at the right time when his career was taking off. And so he did the first video for us, and it got on Much Music. And yeah, those were different times though, right? It was like there was a Much Music video countdown that people watched.
Yeah, those are the good old days with Tarzan Dan and the Much Music countdown. With that video that you're talking about, I'm trying to think, was there not a scene that took place in a commercial kitchen?
No, that came a bit later.
Oh, is that later?
Yeah, that was like another video we had after that. That was actually directed by my brother, which is pretty cool. So, but that first video was like really got things moving. And then my brother directed that other video that also got on the show The Wedge that was on Much Music, but it was like after hours or something. Yeah. But there was a time when it was like, you know, things were happening. We did a little bit of touring. Like I booked us a tour in the UK. We didn't actually end up going, but it was booked. Things like that, where you're just sort of dabbling in like what you think, because it's like you think you know what you should do.
Oh yeah.
But if you don't have someone there guiding you, you're just sort of making it up as you go along and hoping that it's the right thing to do.
Ashley's with us here in the studio, and we were actually just talking about that earlier, about how you have to have the right team, because I tried to do so much of this myself, and then you start to realize you just can't, and you start to realize what your limitations are, and everything from, you know, graphic design. I come up with a design for, you know, the logo, for the media passes, and I'm like, oh, these are fantastic. I give it to my graphic designer, and he said, oh yeah, it's not bad, but I'm going to freshen it up. And I'm thinking, oh no, he's going to ruin it. And then I get it back and I'm like, oh man, these are so good. Like, you know what you're doing. So you need the right team to guide you, but you also need that dream. You also need to think big. You also, I think, need to think, yeah, I can do this on my own.
Yeah. And sometimes not knowing any better can help you too when you just go for things, right? Like apply for festivals that you probably have no shot of getting in, but actually, you know, that in my career, there's been a bunch of times where I should have known better, but I actually got in, or like, you know, the opportunity came through, and then move things forward.
You just got to go after it. Yeah.
And not to get into too many details, but things sort of petered out after that with that band. Our drummer is a whole other story, but like he moved to the States, and he was sort of playing with two bands at the same time, us and another band. Yeah. But that other band in New York City, they actually went viral, and they had like one of the early like viral videos for rock bands and stuff. They're called Atomic Tom. A great band. I love their music too. It's like music I wish I had done.
Yeah.
And so they went, and all great musicians, but they went viral with this video of them playing on their iPhones on the subway in New York. But they were like known as like the iPhone band at the beginning. But really they're actually great musicians. And so ended up playing on Jimmy Kimmel from that viral video. And it was nice because they had them start on their phones on the music app, but then they go into the theater and the show and actually get on the real instruments and play the song. But he obviously, that, you know, took him up, so then we ended up getting a new drummer, but things just sort of you know, it's not much, it just sort of petered out, I guess you could say. I was getting a little bit antsy, like, I was 100% committed to that band, and like it was my whole life basically. Like I always throw myself in like 100%, like all my savings, like all my time, everything's going into trying to make like the dream happen or whatever that means. But it was just like not much was happening, so I started writing some music on the side with keyboardist Bryn Winter, who is the wife of the bass player in the Framework.
Okay.
So we were like doing our side thing, and then how we get to Fire by Fire, the Fire by Fire band is basically. So the plan was, okay, we'll do a duo and we'll just hire like different musicians, different than anyone we worked with before. And so we did have like auditions, and we did have other musicians playing with us. And I guess, I don't know if we found the wrong people or something, but they just weren't really into it. Like the two of us were like really big like synth pop fans, and also like rock bands that use a lot of synths. Like we just love that, because it's like a very specific thing, and you have to like, look to find those bands. But I think the other people just wanted to play like more like alt country or like straight ahead rock. So they would just drop out after like a week or a couple weeks, and like, oh man. So then we're stuck back to like the duo, the two of us. And then and then the drummer and the bass player from the Framework, like we're like, well, we're not really doing much anyways, so we'll just join you.
Let's get in on this.
And then funny enough how everything happens, like, so we didn't even really have the band. Like we had said, okay, that's cool, we'll start playing together, we're just not doing anything else anyways. And then that band from the drummer in New York, they were on tour and they were coming to Toronto, and he asked me, can you guys open for us? He asked me, do you have a band? Can you open for us? I'm like, I think so. Not really yet, but we'll do it. Yeah, sure. Because it was at the old Elma Combo, and like, I want to do it.
Is that still around?
Yeah, I mean, they don't get me started on that. It doesn't have the same vibe, but it's there. They've made it all brand spanking new, and it looks very expensive inside. But it was a pretty cool place when we were playing there back in the day. Basically, the owners were chill. They let the bands run the door. They just were like, "We'll run the bar, you run the show, and then we're good." So we loved it because it was
perfect.
No stress. You just do your thing. It was great. But so they asked me to open for them. I'm like, okay, so then I had to get the band together, and we only had like 2 weeks to do it. So I'm like, all right, rehearse these songs we have, because previously they were just like the duo songs. We'll rehearse all these songs. And then I went and got t-shirts made. So it seemed like I had this whole thing planned for like a long time. Yeah. But you can get t-shirts made in a day or two. Like it is possible, right?
I think so.
Like I just did that actually for this one.
So. And they look great. I saw them on the merch booth. I think sometimes when the pressure is on, that's when people tend to work harder.
Yeah.
Right. And you only had 2 weeks to put this together, or know, that show that you're talking about. You only had 2 weeks, and it's like shit. Like let's get moving. Let's actually do it. And then you start to grind, and then things turn out. Yeah.
People are like, "What the hell? Like, where did this come from? Like, were these guys planning this the whole time?" And but no, it just sort of like that was it. That was like the starting point. We're like, okay, well, we got shirts and we got the songs now. And then we got a grant to record an album. So we did that, and then I booked us a tour across Eastern Canada.
It sounds like you had success with that band, but it can't be that easy.
Yeah, I had some sort of some health problems and stuff. Again, it's really hard to keep a band together. I think anyone that's been in a band, it's just, all different opinions and different, goals in life and everything. And so
eventually catches up.
Yeah, just like, so that one also, it was like, it's a hard grind, especially like, you tour across Canada and you play like one show and it's packed. Like we played like St. Patty's Day in Charlottetown, and it was like rammed and like amazing. Great show, got paid well, huge crowd. And then it's like, then you go play like, Dartmouth in the middle of the winter and there's no one there.
I've literally been there, and then you end up doing a show just for the bartender and, the staff cleaning up the chairs.
Okay, maybe we should rethink this whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. We
but
need
it happens.
A new plan.
And there's a weird disconnect too, because sometimes you're getting great press. Like you get on like CBC or something, and it's like, wow, from the outside, everyone's like, oh, things are happening. Yeah. But then like, maybe there's stuff like that show where like, there's other issues.
But you got to grind though, right? You got to do that. You can't let that stuff stop you, right? Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people, they hit that roadblock and they say, okay, that's it, I'm done, I'm not gonna press on.
While I'm here in Alberta, I'm actually producing an album we're actually recording tomorrow, the tracking the strings for an album. It's sort of like atmospheric kind of music. So it reminds me of like Enya a bit from with Lauren Peterson. So it's a Bun is the name of the project. And so she said to me this week, we're the never giver uppers. I like that phrase. It's like, that's right. I'm like, that's right, Lauren. We're going to keep going. Because she's been doing this for a long time too, and different things and trying different styles of music and stuff, because she was doing some jazz stuff before. Yeah, but you know, after playing in so many bands, you're just like, it's such a struggle to keep things going forward and differing opinions on what you should do and all this stuff. And also I said I was having a bit of health problems and stuff, so I was just like, I need a break. So I took a little bit of a break there, and that's when I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it myself now.
Yeah.
Just for the hell of it, just to see if I can. Because I like that idea, you know, about how Prince had his home studio and he would just go in there and like mess around and just
all
for fun.
day, every day. What do you have? Like
So I was
thousands
like,
of tapes and
yeah. So I was like, that sounds cool. I want to do that too. So I recorded all the drums myself, bass, guitar, like, so that entire Canvas album, which is the group I started after that, that entire thing was just me.
I don't think people realize how impressive and how time consuming that actually is.
But all the way through, like even Fire by Fire, like we had a video on Much Music too. A friend of mine from LA was in town and we recorded a music video that looks awesome. The song was called We Didn't Know, which we wrote in like 5 minutes as a band together, which was really cool too.
Some of the best songs are written quick.
Yeah. And then the Canvas album, like, you know, I got a song from there on Degrassi, which is pretty cool. Kind of a fun story about that is like, you know, you get a license for a song and they tell you like your song's going to be in the show. And you're like, okay, like 10 seconds in a transition or something.
One single note.
But it's funny because in that, so you don't know until you see the show. And so I see the show and it's like, there's like a club scene in this episode. And it literally, the whole song plays during the club scene. I'm like, oh my gosh, like,
that's exciting.
Yeah.
You know, that's exciting.
It's pretty cool. I'm like, are they going to cut to the next scene? And like, it keeps going and you hear basically the whole song on that show. So that was pretty cool.
How do you know, like, are moments like that when you think to yourself, man, I think I've made it, or I think that's it. I think that's my break.
Yeah. I don't know. There's so many peaks and valleys. Like those things just get you excited. Like even being here in Lethbridge, you're like, okay, like that was awesome. But then even right after, I'm like, man, my guitar tone sucked today. Like I should have plugged in my cord into the other input, you know? So all these things, you're always like second guessing how you could have made it better, or at least I do, what I could do differently to improve it.
But you've had such a long musical career that I think you're continuing to do that. You reinvent yourself, and I think every album is better than the last.
Yeah.
And then especially with the new Bell Fountain album, or I guess it'd be the debut album, it is fire, man. It is so good. Because your first single, Give It Up, that came out. I know I had it on my save list, waiting for it, and I felt it was a departure from Canvas, right? And is it like, would you say like alternative rock, or would you say more folk?
Yeah.
Is it more of a folk?
Well, that's the thing.
Album?
Like my plan, I had a plan, and it is what I pitched to like get financial support and stuff, grants and things for the album. Was like, all right, I've done enough rock band stuff and enough synth rock stuff, and I spent like the last 8 years playing jazz piano and producing jazz albums, actually for my wife's who's Tia Brazda. For her, she's a jazz singer and singer-songwriter, so I was absorbed in the jazz world for a while. Basically put my career on hold because I just got so into that. But that was a learning experience too, because like it was like live instruments, acoustic instruments, and no synths. And so coming out of that, I was like, okay, for this new record, I want to stick with that. No more like nothing artificial. Like I want all real people, human beings playing instruments in a room. So that's what I did. But in the end, it's like, so I got like a gospel song, I got a soul song. I wasn't able to really keep it consistent. And I think that's just my musical ADD of, I just, get distracted with all the different kinds of things you can do, different styles. And so I didn't really keep it consistent. Like, all right, this is going to be like a soul album.
But it works. Every song.
They're all pretty close. Like there's little bits that like one song kind of is, you can hear bits of it in the next song. Like this one has a gospel choir, but then the next one does too. And so there's sort of like these things that tie it all together. But the first track, Give It Up, I marketed that as alt rock, basically alternative rock. And that's the radio stations I sent it to. And it's kind of fun though, because say like the next song, Rattle On, is like a more like dark and brooding tune. So then that one, like I sent it to like bloggers who would like that kind of thing. And then like the third one, which is the one that's done the best, is Tell Me When It Rains. I sent that one everywhere, and I love that tune. I just can't even believe that came out of me. Like I wrote that too. The melodies are just pop in your head one day, and you're just like, and you're like, where'd that come from? Okay, I'll take that.
I was like, where's my guitar?
Get
my guitar, I gotta record this.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm really happy with that one because like I had that opening lick and I had bits of it, and I knew in the back of my mind that like, okay, the bridge of that song needs to go change keys a bit. I didn't know how. And so that's where I actually sat down. I was like, okay, I know what I want it to sound like. In the end, I can always, like, no matter what project I'm working on, I can always hear the sort of vague thing of what I know it's going to sound like at the very end. Yeah. But like, it doesn't exist yet. So how do I get there? And so I wrote like a whole bunch of different bridges and played through them. And then one of those 4 bridges I had was like, that's the one. And now I look at it, I'm like, all right, that's pretty good. Like, I can't believe I did those. I like those chord changes. And I sort of like entertaining myself with, you know, I went to like this chord, this chord, this chord, and then it goes to this, switches around, and somehow we made it back.
Which is hard to do. How do you break up a song, but also keep it the same song? And I think you do that really well. And you do have a lot of key changes that kind of make you, oh, what's happening now? And then you bring it all back around, and you're like, man, that was good. That's like a good break from the normal melody.
Yeah.
Right?
It's tricky though, because it's fine for me as a listener and as a creator. Like, I'm satisfied that I got to do all those different styles of music and everything I got to do. But it's tricky though. Like I said, like if you're promoting radio singles, you can just go, guess what? Here's an alt rock song. Guess what? Here's an Americana song, and send it to the people that want it. But when you release the whole album, it's all there together. So it's interesting to see like people's reception. Like I just had a review last week. Not the greatest review, but I think it's also because, like, you know, if you hear the first song, you're expecting like, okay, it's going to be an alt rock album. So maybe you wouldn't have sent it to like an Americana, you know, reviewer. And if you hear like Through the Darkness or Won't Turn Back, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. It's like all country stuff. Like, okay. But then you're going to hear, you know, something else later, like a Rufus Wainwright type song later on. So I don't know how people are going to take it. Like, but also I feel like it would be boring to do all the exact same style.
I agree 100%. There are albums out there that are like that, and they have their place and their time, and it's like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
But an album that keeps you guessing. But yeah, you're right. You have the alt rock song, Give It Up, and then you go into you know, something that's a little more country. Then you go into something that sounds a little southern, you know, some gospel. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. That's what.
Yeah,
that's what
I think it also, if you're like a music fan with diverse tastes as well, then you're cool with it. You're like, yeah, I know all these different genres, and I like them all. If you have an open mind,
I think you have to be diverse. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on so much good music.
Yeah. I think I picked that up from Spooky Reuben too, because his MO has always been like, every song can be a different genre, like for real, like on overdrive, like. So the album we're producing right now is like, this song he's doing a jazz tune, like a mambo, you know, and like this one is like going to be this thing. This one's going to be like circa 2003 indie rock. And like purposely every song is like, you don't know what you're going to get, you know? And I think that's rubbed off on me. So.
Why not, right? Like we all think, hey, there's this formula that we got to stick to, right? Yeah. Break the mold, break the formula, do something different.
Yeah. I think also like a lot, like I know some people write like 30, 40 songs, and just like from that, they take their best 10 or whatever. Yeah. I should do more. I tend to weed out things early, so I never make it to that giant list of possibilities. So like for this one, I have 10 songs on there. I think maybe I wrote 12 for the album, and I got 2 that I didn't use, maybe, maybe 11. I think it was 11 actually. Like I'm sort of forced to use what I have. I didn't have a lot to choose from to make the whole thing one genre.
But the ones you chose great songs, and you made.
I thought that was the most important.
They're solid.
Is it a good song or not? Yeah, there's a certain like benchmark. You're like, if I only had 11 or 12 songs and like I didn't think one was deserved to be on the album, then I should have written more.
Or you write 40 songs and then you're like, I don't need to make that one better because I got 39 other ones I could choose from. So that's good enough for now. And then it's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, and some people like they don't like working on songs. Like it shouldn't be labored too much. Yeah. But I mean, there's tons of stories of great bands that have great artists that, you know, I think even like U2, like one of their greatest songs, like Where the Streets Have No Name, and you read about it, how like they spent forever trying to get that song and almost didn't make the cut on the album. How could that have been? Like that's a great tune. But yeah, I don't mind doing that. Like I don't mind keeping that song on the go and hashing it out constantly until I finally get it somewhere that's usable. You know, if you don't like the chorus, then rewrite it. Or if you don't like this, then just redo it.
So we can't not talk about this because aside from being the frontman of some amazing bands, you are also a JUNO Award-winning producer.
Yeah.
Now, I keep on asking you, do you have that moment of, yeah, I've made it? Does that moment not classify as a moment like, yeah, I've made it?
Yeah, for sure. It's a weird thing though. There's a couple weird things about it. So I've been producing albums with the children's group Splash and Boots, who are, you know, wildly successful. They're like top children's artists, or one of the top children's artists in Canada. And so we did a whole bunch of albums together, and they kept getting nominated. And so you get so close. Doesn't mean everything, but it's pretty cool. And so a couple years I got to go to the Junos. Like, it's fun hanging out and, you know, rubbing shoulders with all famous musicians and so on. It was a good time. But then that one that we actually won the award for was during the pandemic, and there was no event. It was just online. So pretty anticlimactic.
Oh,
It's like,
really?
That was all pumped.
What
like,
a bummer.
we got nominated, and then you're like, oh, I don't know if we're gonna have anything. And so sure enough, they just did it online. So they just announced it on the screen. You're like, yay, you're at home, and okay. There's nothing, no celebration except for just whoever you're with. You know?
Exactly.
So I think we celebrated in their backyard, if I remember. But it was, you know, still fun. I think they did something like the next year, but you know, we kind of missed that one year. We kind of missed the
not
events.
the same.
But yeah, it's, you know, I kind of knew, like, you work. It's not everything, but you definitely, at least it's something to aspire to. Like, you know, in Canada, like, that's something you eventually want to get. But of course, then the next day you're like, okay, well, now what? Like, go for another one? Or like, so for me, I feel like I have other goals now. Like, that was nice to get, and I feel like it wrapped up a chapter because we had done so much together, so many albums, and we got nominated so many times that, like,
it was nice
to finally get it. And then, okay, now what? Now what's next? And so for me, what was next was this album. It was like, okay, because I do spend a lot of time producing other artists, and that's great. I love doing it. Like, it's so fun, especially when there's like co-writes involved, like with Spooky's new album. Like, we co-wrote a bunch of the songs together, and it's just fun bouncing off each other. But it is pretty time consuming. Like, that's just me, I guess. I make it time consuming because I put everything into it, basically. Like, I care about the music, so it takes up my whole, it consumes my whole life, basically. So when someone asks me, like, can you produce my album, it's like I have to decide, and I've turned down a lot because it's like, I don't think I can give up 6 months of my life, or I don't think I can give up a year of my life for this project, because I know I won't be able to do anything else, basically.
Yeah.
So I mean, currently I'm producing 2 albums, but they're ones I really wanted to work on, and I thought I could make it work.
Yeah. And you have a family, right? You have kids, and they take up a lot of time, and start to find that balance.
Yeah. I'm pretty lucky in that somehow so far I've been able to, like, I'm a night owl, and I usually do all my work between like 10 p.m. and like 3 a.m. or something, you know. Just get a few hours sleep and I'm good.
Yeah, that's all you need. So what I think Arnold Schwarzenegger said, oh, if you need more sleep, sleep faster. It's like, yeah, I guess so, right? Couple more things just before we take off. What are your future plans? Like, you're on tour right now with Bell Fountain, right? You got
so we're on tour across Canada. We got 3 more shows in Alberta this week, and then back to Ontario. We got a bunch of Ontario shows in Quebec, or playing Montreal, and then going out west to BC, playing Vancouver and Victoria. So kind of covering everything. I would have liked to gone to the East Coast as well, but we didn't do it this time. And I'm sort of just tracking, like, a bunch of these songs are like getting a lot of buzz in certain places. Like Tell Me When It Rains is like getting a lot of airplay in Atlanta and, you know, Lexington, Kentucky, and different places. So it's like sort of like slowly forming this plan in my mind of, okay, where am I going to go next year?
Yeah.
And I sort of left it open, like, I'm going to leave. I'm doing Canada this summer. What's it going to be next year, like in the spring? Am I going to, I usually don't tour in the winter just to avoid, you know, travel problems and stuff. So am I going to go to the deep south, or I guess
why not?
I might have to wait for the election that's coming up, but
yeah, maybe, right?
Or do I go to Europe? Because, you know, that's a whole other thing. And it's tricky because, you know, flying a whole band to Europe, I do a lot of pickup bands. Like I flew here into Edmonton, and the musicians that I'm playing with are from Edmonton, but I know them, but we rehearse once I get here. So that's a little bit easier because, you know.
And they're great musicians, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
But, you know, if you want to, it's a little trickier when you have to fly over to England or something, and it's like, okay, do I bring the whole band with me? $1,000 a flight?
It makes it hard. It makes it hard.
So I'm still trying to figure that out, but I do plan on touring somewhere outside of Canada in the spring, probably the US, I'm thinking.
Oh, it's pretty cool. Some of the comments for Tell Me When It Rains, some people are saying, oh, I can't believe this is a Canadian song.
Yeah, that's
like,
cool.
Yeah, Canada has good musicians, great musicians, and Bell Fountain is one of them. And this album is going to be around for a long time. I think people are going to really enjoy it and be surprised by it. And if this is the first time any of our listeners have heard of Chris Graham or Bell Fountain, I think now they'll be listening a little differently and maybe more appreciative of the whole process and what it actually takes to put something like this together. And I think you're going to have some instant fans, man. The new album, Some Hearts, where can they pick that up?
Well, it's available on Bandcamp. I really love Bandcamp. That's where I have everything. So the label that I run, Flat Car Records, like we have a label page, and then the artist page, Bell Fountain, is there. I got CDs. I'm really excited. I actually got vinyl for the first time in my whole life. That's pretty cool.
It's awesome.
You got t-shirts and stuff there too. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's on every music platform as well. The full album is just out on Spotify. So
Well, that's awesome. And so make sure to check it out, and we'll put all that info on our website and social media sites. So go to Mach10podcast.com to find all that info. But we're actually going to be doing our very first giveaway, and it happens to be a copy of Bell Fountain's debut album, Some Hearts.
Oh, wow.
And what I'd like to do is I'd like for Chris, when we hit a certain amount of subscribers, if I can get a hold of you and we can do a live giveaway.
Absolutely.
You'd be up for that?
Absolutely.
I'm thinking if we hit, 10 million subscribers? Is that too many? Is that too many? How about 500?
Dream big.
Right? Dream big, right? How about 500? Is that a good number? What's a good number? All right, I'm being told that 500 followers is a good number for this contest and to get things rolling for the Mach 10 podcast. So subscribe to our Instagram page at the Mach 10 podcast. And once we hit 500 subscribers or more, we'll do a live giveaway with Chris Graham of Bell Fountain. It's literally that easy. Also, make sure to like us on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll have Spotify and anywhere else you get your podcasts up and running shortly. Some Hearts is the debut album from Canadian band Bell Fountain, fronted by the talented Chris Graham, and this album is seriously one you have to check out and experience for yourself. It checks off all the boxes and really takes you through a musical journey of different styles, and one that I think is going to take off and really make a mark in Canadian music. Some Hearts is actually my favorite song on the album, and it came at a time in my life when the lyrics in the chorus just really spoke to me. Blown away by this album.
Appreciate that.
I have one last thing I want to do. So we have some local companies that have put together a little gift basket.
Oh my gosh, come on.
Yeah. So I want to make sure you leave with some good stuff here. So first off, we got a large bag of Frittles. I love that name, which is freeze-dried candy from a small family-run business called Freeze It. They offer quality small batch treats for people across the province, and even their kids get involved and help out when they can. So indulge in every crunch. Make sure to check them out at freezeit.ca. That's FREEZEIT.ca. Chris, these are for you. All right, next we have a bag of sea salt flavored caramels from Whips Caramels, another local to Lethbridge family run business, again with their kids getting involved, which I think is so great, and they put out such a good product. And if you haven't had Whips yet, oh my God, you are missing out. But with that in mind, we're actually going to be giving our listeners an opportunity to win a bag of Whips Caramels, and we'll do that live in a video with Whips themselves, so stay tuned for more info on that. Make sure to check out whipscaramels.com. That's WHIPS caramels.com. Chris, these are also for you.
Cool.
All right, so what do we have next? Oh, it looks like we got some swag from Fire Safety Services. Okay, this company holds a close place in my heart, and if you know, you know, so please wear this stuff proudly. Fire Safety Services is 100% locally owned and operated in Lethbridge, Alberta, and have extensive expertise in fire protection, including sprinkler systems, fire alarm systems, kitchen systems, fire extinguishers, fire hoses, new installs, repairs, design, commercial, industrial. I think you get the point. So please check out Fire Safety Services Ltd.ca for more info. So last but not least, I can't let you leave without a Mach 10 podcast t-shirt.
Nice.
So I have to thank Emily for making these on short notice, and I'm really happy with the look. I was wearing the black version today at your show, and I really like how it turned out, so we'll definitely offer this on the Mach 10 podcast store, which will be launching pretty soon on our website. I'm actually really excited about that because I work with an amazing graphic designer that takes my terrible, long-winded explanations and rough ideas and somehow turns them into these amazing designs. So I have some ideas that I can't wait to bring to life, so stay tuned for the Mach 10 podcast store. So this is all your stuff, Chris. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Feel free to share it with the rest of the band or not.
On the drive back to Edmonton.
Yeah. Final request, and then I'll let you go.
All right.
You're no longer my hostage anymore. We have a live area for musical guests. Would you be up for doing an acoustic song?
Sure.
You'd be up for that?
Yeah.
That would be awesome. All right, thank you so much. This was the very first episode of the Mach 10 podcast, and I couldn't have asked for a better first guest, the incredibly talented, JUNO Award winning, and just overall hell of a nice guy, Chris Graham of Bell Fountain. Make sure you pick up a copy of Bell Fountain's debut album, Some Hearts. It's out now. It's a 10 out of 10, and we'll have a link in the bio. And remember, we're going to be doing a live giveaway with Chris of the album once we hit 500 subscribers on the Mach 10 Podcast Instagram. You can find all our info on our website, mach10podcast.com. That's MACH10podcast.com. Chris, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Number 2, I will offer you the water.
That's okay.
I forgot.
And now performing live in studio, Chris Graham of Bell Fountain.
Just give it up.
Living on a wire, fighting all the fires, living on the edge, singing in the mire. The difference of a day, the difference of a mind. If only I could share everything inside. Oh, oh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Give it up, give it up, give it up now. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Live it up before you live it down. Oh, oh, oh. Waiting for the wave, waiting for a sign to make a point to break from everything we tried. A disappointed shade, a disappointed smile. Oh, I just wanna take all the tears you cried. Oh, oh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Give it up, give it up, give it up now. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Live it up before you live it down. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Give it up, give it up, give it up now. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Live it up before you live it down. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ooh, we're only getting older now. Ooh, I don't wanna hit the ground. Ooh, can what we lost ever be found? Ooh, can't tell me that it's over now. Saying that I'll change, saying that it's fine. The times we're in are strange, just leave it all behind. Woo, woo, woo. Give it up, give it up, give it up now. Woo, woo, woo. Live it up before you live it down. Woo, woo, woo. Give it up, give it up, give it up now.
Whoa, 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 whoa. There you go. All right. I messed up one chord in that bridge, but you know what? It's all right.
The Mach 10 podcast.